All right. How many of you guys have heard this talk before on seed starting? I've given it several times. So if you have questions or emphasis, anything, let me know. So it looks like most, except for that back row of ardent seed sowers, most people have not heard me speak. So I am Jennifer Klammer. I am a master gardener, and I garden in 3 places. So one is my home garden, which is has a south-facing area with raised beds. And one is at the Giving Garden with a 4-H club with 31 raised beds and a small greenhouse that is 6 feet or 8 feet by 12 foot kind of greenhouse. And then I also do the vegetable starts for the Master Gardener plant sale. And that's out at Philomath High School. And that greenhouse is more like 40 feet by 60 feet. So I was trying to do a rough calculation of how many plants I've grown, vegetable plants, and it's probably around 40,000. So lots of starting seeds indoors experience here. So we will talk about starting vegetable seeds indoors and go through the basics. And I will highlight which I think are the most important. There's a lot of technical kinds of stuff behind it, but the take-home messages are pretty obvious. We'll spend a very small time on transplanting and hardening off. If you have more questions about that, please interject in between. Then we'll do a little bit of tips for success, and that will be looking at pictures of, oh no, what happened here? And then some resources. And I hope to have a good chunk of time for Q&A. So what are some of your reasons for starting indoors, starting seeds indoors?
Money.
Money, save money. What else?
Growing season.
Extend the growing season. Ruby.
Seeds you want to plant.
Seeds you want to plant, not just what's available in the nursery. Anything else? I think you guys hit on it. Extend the season, strong, vigorous seeds for transplant, more seed varieties than plants available locally, more economical if many plants are desired. However, there's a big way to make this not very economical and to just go crazy buying seeds, right?
Want other varieties other than what you can buy in the store.
Absolutely. You want special varieties. And so seed catalogs and online things make things readily available that are super fun and sometimes maybe more challenging. Lisa.
It's really gratifying to see them germinate.
Yeah. It's a miracle. It is. It's such a miracle to see these things coming up, All right, let's get down to the basics. So what do plants need to germinate and grow? Obviously, I could do this as a quiz, but you guys would get there pretty fast. I do this with 4-H kids. I've been leading a 4-H club for 11 years, and it's surprising how basic things like soil gets left off their list. But yeah. So this slide is just a segue. Yeah, I'm going to touch on each of these topics as we go through and the basics of what seeds need to germinate and grow. So there's a reason I'm starting with light first. If you go away from here today and the only thing you think of is, I need to add light when I'm starting seeds indoors, that's worth it, right? So I have a south-facing window, and it seems like it gets a lot of light during the day. No, but this time of year, we get, I don't know, the sun comes up about 7 now, and it goes down about 5. So it's about 10 hours of light. But how much of that is good light?
Yeah.
Is really low in the sky this time of year. So even if you put it in your biggest south-facing window, like that windowsill over there, like, oh, that looks pretty nice. It's probably not going to be enough. So provide additional light. You want 12 to 16 hours per day, and off at night is best. If so, you can put things on a simple little timer. I mean, cheap lamp timer, right? You don't need much high-tech stuff. And you'll want to use something that you can adjust the light level down to 4 inches above your plants. So again, this desk lamp is a LED lamp, nothing high-tech about it, but super easy to make adjustable, right? So there's a lot of different ways you can do that, fancy light stands and grow stands and things like that. But low tech is probably just fine. The maximum you're going to need it is probably 8 to 10 weeks. So if you need to upgrade on your desk lamp, get a really nice desk lamp. Oops. So a lot of times people jump to, oh, what's the most important thing to grow things? It's, oh, we got to have really warm place for these to grow. Well, that is true. You do need heat to get things to grow. However, there's a big range. And you see here on this chart, we have cool season crops on top down to the hot, warmer season crops on the bottom. And obviously the minimum temperatures, you're gonna get a not as robust growth. But they have a pretty big range over which they will germinate. So anywhere from 45 to 95 degrees is kind of the range. So how many people have their house set somewhere between 45 and 90? Yeah, so you're going to get pretty decent germination at your normal room temperature. You don't have to go out and buy fancy heat mats. Right now, I do have my house a little warmer. We got our floors refinished, and he said, you need to keep the heat on at 72 degrees. And I'm like, so warm in there. But generally, our house is at 64 at night, so it fluctuates a little bit. So the optimum temperature is about 10 to 15 degrees above ambient if you want to get fast germination. So faster germination isn't always necessary, especially if you're looking at your cool season crops. Again, looking at lettuce and spinaches, at 59 degrees, it might take a week, but at 77 degrees, you could save 2 days. The things where it makes a difference are the warm season crops, especially, the peppers. So you can see at 59 degrees, it could take 25 days, whereas at 77 to 86 days, it's more like 8 degrees. 77 to 86 degrees, you'll get more like 8 days. So temperature will make a difference. However, if you have heat mats and no additional light, your plants are going to shoot up fast and they'll be very spindly. So if I only had one thing to choose, what's it going to be between heat or light? If I had to go buy one thing, light, exactly. So there's propagation mats readily available. For the small size ones are run about $20, $25. And if you don't have a thermostat, something like that Jumpstart thermostat, which costs about $35. If you don't have a thermostat, the mats will be about 10 degrees above ambient. So if your house is 60 degrees and you just plug it into the wall, you'll get a 70-degree mat. And I've never had one. Has anybody ever used one and it's gone crazy and fried your stuff because you didn't have a thermometer or a thermostat? Yeah, I haven't either. So you have a question here?
Do you need, if the light you have is like 1,000-watt grow light, does it generate enough heat that you don't need mats underneath the seedlings?
So the question was, if you have a grow light that generates heat, do you need a heat mat? I don't think so. Because your house, if it's inside, I don't think so. If you're doing it out in your garage, maybe, because the garage temperature is that much
Still
cooler.
need mats?
No, I don't think you need mats.
Okay.
If you have a grow light that's generating heat, and you need to watch that. So I have examples of soil up here. And it's worth coming up afterwards. I don't really want to pass them around because I already dumped it once. But you can use you can use anything that's sterile mix. I say seeding soil or seeding mix because if you'll notice here, it's much more finely ground, and so it's I think distributes. This is not scientific. It distributes heat more evenly than the regular potting mix that tends to be pretty heavy and hold water a lot. So I think it makes more difference for the warm season crops than for the cool season crops. I think the cool season crops you can get away with a damper, wetter kind of start, but I highly recommend the seedling mix. And you can get them in small bags like in regular nurseries. So by using this mix, you're not bringing in soil-borne pathogens. So you don't want to take your garden soil and chop it up into little nice lightweight stuff that's going to bring in fungi and bacteria and all other things. So, and don't reuse old potting mix. Like if you have containers outside and, it had geraniums in there, but now they're dead. So I'm just going to use this. So probably not a good idea. Again, you don't want to be introducing random organisms to your baby nursery of plants. Also, if you get the stuff in the plastic bag, pour it into a bucket and moisten it with a shovel or something. I'm sure you've all done that. You put the dry potting mix in it, and then you go to water it, and it poofs up, and then all your seeds go floating all around, and it is hard to moisten after the fact in the containers. So no added nutrients are needed. The seeds have what they need to germinate, so you don't have to add fertilizer at this stage. There's all kinds of containers you can use, but I do use mats when I'm gardening in the greenhouses because they're outdoors and we don't heat the greenhouses that much. And I like to have bottom heat to encourage the growth. So I don't like to use containers that are too tall, and there's no need to at this point. So at 2 to 3 inches, and if you're doing it inside and you're using it with a light, 2 to 3 inches is adequate. And these kind of containers that have lids on them are really, really nice to use because it will keep the moisture contained, but the light can still get through, and it also doesn't make puddles all over your furniture. There's a lot of different ways you can do this without having to use a bunch of plastic. I like to reuse as much as I can. If you are reusing, use a 10% bleach pollution solution for 10 minutes to get rid of any critters that might be there. So water is super important too. You want to have the right mix of water, not too wet, not too dry, kind of Goldilocks syndrome here. Starting with the moist seeding mix, you probably don't need to water if you've already started with a moist mix. You tamped it down a little bit so you get good water passage through the soil mix, and you cover it with some clear material, unless you're seeding seeds that are not vegetables and they need light to germinate. You can cover them to start out. I like to mist with a spray bottle, especially for the small herb seeds and that kind of thing, because I have literally floated seeds all over, right? Because I'm using some kind of spray or whatever. So you can do it from the bottom too, if you have a place that you can make sure that then it's not standing in water, right? That's the worst thing, is to overwater and your container is in standing water, because that's going to invite anaerobic conditions. Oh, and with the light, if you do have your lights and they're low, 4 inches off, that's when you can kind of fry your plants. So you need to make sure you're looking at what the moisture level looks like on your soil, especially at the beginning when you're using lights and heat mats. So air movement is also important. You want to provide air circulation and space your plants for good airflow. So again, working with kids, they'll tend to like put too many seeds in one cell and they'll get really crowded. So you want to limit the number of seeds in a cell. You'll see there's 2 per cell here. And this was a Kathy Tucker trick, run your hand over the seedlings so that they're getting movement in them. I like to use oscillating fan, but it's good to do the movement. So this is a tomato plant. Once the 2 true leaves are up is when you can start fertilizing using a liquid fertilizer at 1/2 to 1/4 strength. All right, challenge number 1. What's the symptom? Leaning plants. So even in my best south window, leaning plants. So seedlings may become leggy, they might fall over, light, and it might be accentuated with heat and not enough light. So solution?
Rotate.
Rotate it, add light. What's this? Could be fungus, it could be
Overwater.
So this, I think, was a mold. Sorry, I'm gonna, take it off.
So the
Problem? So the problem?
less
Too much
water
water.
to it.
Too much air, not enough air circulation. So take off those humidity covers. If you had the plastic over the top beforehand, take them off. Let some air move around. Check the drainage. Is it sitting in water? If it's sitting in water, pour off the water, clear it off, move it around.
Is it too late for that?
No, it's not too late. You can't see the plant. The plant was probably okay in this. It's just growing on the surface of the soil. So you want to clear it up. Also, oh yeah,
I found that adding vermiculite on top of it, I don't have that problem as much.
okay. So she says that if you put vermiculite on top, so that's that flat, shiny kind of stuff.
Thin layer.
Lisa.
Cinnamon is kind of a useful, everybody has it in their kitchen.
Cinnamon?
Cinnamon is antifungal.
Oh. Sprinkled on top?
Yep.
Tricky. So often we'll see green stuff growing on top. That's not so much a concern. White mold-like, yes. Okay, can you see what's happening here?
Damping off.
Damping off, yes. So this at the soil level, the stems start shriveling down.
Would you repeat that, please?
It's damping off. Damping, D-A-M-P-I-N-G.
And could you describe that, please?
So the stems, see how the stem is shriveling? And then they'll actually fall over.
And die.
And you'll say, oh, maybe it didn't get enough light. Well, this one's doing fine. Standing, that one's doing fine. This one, not so much. So this is a reason to not use garden soil because often those fungi they're just normal.
You have all sorts of leaves and other debris in there that indicates it wasn't pure potting seeding mix.
Right. So he's noticing there's other organic material in there. Who knows what got introduced there? Right. Laura,
This is a lost cause, right, at this point?
this is a lost cause at this point. Yes. I've never seen him come back. Has anybody else seen him come back once they fall over? It's done. Okay.
Question.
Uh-huh.
With are the other plants near affected too if it's a soil-borne pathogen? Like, do you need to worry about the whole tray?
It doesn't seem to transfer plant to plant. Some plants are stronger and don't get affected. I don't think so. Does anybody have a scientific answer for that? Damping off? I don't think so.
Soil.
So if you remove the bad ones, they should be fine.
Thanks.
Is there another question over here? Okay, challenge 4. What looks like happening here?
Crowding.
Overcrowding.
Yellow foliage.
Yes, that was what I was trying to highlight here. The yellow foliage, and on the other bottom one, kind of wimpy, stunted foliage, right? Oh, I gave you the answer. So lack of nitrogen. When you see this happening, what are you going to do? Fertilize. So we'll look on your label on your fertilizer. You want to follow that label and do it about half to quarter strength. Or at this point, somebody said too crowded. Yeah, at this point you could pot them, right? And fertilize them. Give them fresh, good soil.
Yeah, some kind of curl.
Yep, pale color, curled leaves, stunted growth. What do you think? Could be insects. These are peppers.
Not enough heat.
It could be too much water. Oh, yeah, I should have said not enough heat too. Yeah, so peppers can be really finicky. The hotter the pepper, the more finicky they are. We'll get into that later. Oh, and so peppers, I really like to water them when they get dry. I don't want them continually all the time moist, right? Okay, I think this is the last challenge. This is tricky. Critters. Symptom. What do you see? They're eaten off. They're gone.
Probably pill bugs or slugs.
Could be bugs or slugs. In this case, this was Malia. We've had this happen out in Paloma too. Uh-huh. So you think critters when they're just gone like that. This happens in your garden too, right? After they're outside, all of a sudden gone. Some kind of critter. I had beautiful lettuce under cover. Yesterday went out, gone. Pretty sure it was a rabbit.
Oh.
Get rid of the mouse.
But how did you know it was a mouse?
Yeah.
I think she found droppings too.
Okay.
Yeah. And her plants are up on tables and everything. You would think they couldn't get up there, but yeah. So you're gonna want to transplant those babies. So, okay, true confessions. How many of you have raised up beautiful little seedlings to then let them die and they never made it to the garden, right? This is the critical phase. So you need to do something with them when those little roots are still separated, right? If you wait too long, then they can get stressed out. They can, usually in my case, they get dried out because they need water all the time at this point to sustain the growth. So transplant them and fertilize them and keep them happy. Don't let them get root bound. So hardening off transplants is a kind of an art, right? And it's an art of patience and paying attention. So when your plants are ready to go out, they've been inside in cozy conditions. You want to set them out for a couple hours in the shade, bring them inside at night, give them a little more sun the next day, bring them inside. So I usually try to harden off things over a week. So if you're buying things at the Master Gardener plant sale or other sales, you don't necessarily know how those plants have been treated. Sometimes it's super cold and those plants weren't hardened off. So you should do that at home. I do that anyway. Any plant I buy that's been probably grown in a greenhouse or kind of cushy conditions, I'll still harden them off gradually. I'm not going to take them outside right away and just plant them the same day I get them because I don't know. Or you could take them outside and plant them and give them cover. All right, so this is an example of giving them cover after planting until they're fully conditioned. Okay, we have some tips for success. This is really important. Okay, light is really important. Tip for success, don't start your seeds too early. Everybody gets the seed catalogs in January and you're just, right, you're ready to go, you're ready to go. It's kind of nice out. But how cold was it this morning?
25.
Yeah, right. So look at the seed packages. This is important. So generally you'll see on here, this is a pepper. What does it say? Start seeds 8 to 10 weeks before anticipated transplant date. So Corvallis nighttime temperatures stay above 45 degrees around May 1st. So 8 to 10 weeks before May 1st is what? March, right? So March is kind of the start of when you should be starting peppers. But I hear all the time, like in February, people have started their peppers. It's like, okay, that's okay, but you need to keep them happy until they can be put outside, right? So you're gonna have to up pot them, you're gonna have to fertilize them. It's a long, long time to keep them going. And they're not gonna be that robust because you're keeping inside in, not ideal conditions for them. And certainly my house is not ideal conditions. So if you have a greenhouse, if you're so lucky to do that, you can probably get away with starting them super early and up potting them. So peppers 8 to 10 weeks before the average last frost, tomatoes 6 to 8 weeks before the average last frost, and cabbages 4 to 6 weeks before transplant and the average last frost. So the Corvallis average last frost is technically April 23rd, but I can't always remember that. I always like to say tax day. Tax day is when the last frost is. However, in 2022, we had a frost here in Corvallis on May 20th. So, it's average. It's average, right? So if it's gonna look, you look at your app and it says it's gonna frost, you go cover them, right? So really, to start any vegetable indoors before March 1st is you're gonna make yourself do a little more work. So here's a graph looking at the average nighttime temperatures. See, it's not till mid-May in Corvallis, and then it extends to the beginning of October. So that's the nighttime temperature thing. So in the Midwest, a lot of people will come and go, oh, why can't I grow XYZ tomato here? It's like, because our nighttime temperatures are cold. And that segues into choosing your varieties. We get seed catalogs from all over the place, right? And the most common thing is to buy things that are not appropriate for this area, or we don't have long enough grow season. So this is an example of two different cabbages. So Tiara, this is a variety that Territorial Seeds sells from day of transplant. So sometimes days, they'll say days from transplant or days from when you direct seed them. So it's just relatively, right? So Tiara is about 65 days, and it makes a decent size head, right? 3-pound head, 6-inch diameter. Whereas January King is 100 to 120 days and can be 4 to 6 pounds. So January King is a mambo. It's a big thing, right? And you could tell by the name kind of what they were targeting. So January King is a late summer fall transplanted kind of cabbage that sits over the winter, and then you cut it in the winter or a very early spring. Whereas Tiara is more of a summer cabbage. They grow fast, they're compact, and they're a nice small size. So at the Giving Garden, where the 4-H kids are, we grow for the food banks. The food banks don't want giant things. The first time we had the giant thing cabbage, we cut them in half and took them to the food bank, and they said, technically, we can't accept these. And we're like, oh my gosh, why not? Well, because you processed them. So they need to be just whole normal heads of things. So, and also, how many of you can eat like the jumbo cabbages? I mean, it takes forever, right?
Sauerkraut.
Make sauerkraut. Oh yeah, I went to one of those pickling classes this last weekend.
You can chop them up or slice them and you can blanch them like 30 seconds and drain them and then just stick them in Ziploc bags and freeze them. You can't use them for fresh, but if you're adding them to soup or something, they work fine.
Beautiful, beautiful food tip. I like it. Blanch them first and then freeze them. So again, time matters for tomatoes. So Sun Golds, those cute little tasty things, are about 65 days. Fantastic is 70 to 75 days. Whereas those jumbo brandy wines are 85 days. So even if you give them the most ideal condition, you're probably not going to be getting those brandy wines till August at the very earliest. And to me, you get 6 brandy wines ready on the last day of September, and you're on vacation. Right? So keep that in mind when you're choosing your varieties. Your brandy wines don't look like it, David. Peppers, also, there's a really wide range of days to maturity. One of the new 4-H kids, so they each get a budget of how much they can spend on seeds. And this one girl had ghost peppers on there. I'm like, ghost peppers, do you like spicy peppers? And she's like, yeah, I like spicy peppers. I said, okay, so when we get these ghost pepper seeds, number one, you're going to be wearing gloves when you plant them, because I don't want you to like touch your face or eyes or something and burn yourself up. But we're also going to try to give it ideal conditions in the greenhouse. We're going to try to give it ideal warm, hot conditions out in when they get transplanted, because they are going to take a long time to germinate, and they're going to take a long time to get to maturity. So again, in choosing your varieties wisely, space matters. So if you want a big producer like Sun Gold, they can get up to 6 feet tall and 3 feet wide easily. Whereas the more compact varieties, like Oregon Spring or other Jim Baggett ones that were bred for Oregon conditions, can stay more compact. So that's a whole nother topic, is garden planning, right? So tips for success: use fresh seed. So I know that the seed library, they only accept seeds from the last 3 years. So when I get my packets, here's a new one I just got for chard. I always put on the package date up in the upper left. And then I'll put on the right-hand side how long they're going to be good for, generally on average. And so for chard seeds, it's 4 years, 3 to 4 years. So I put 2025, 26, 27, right? So I put 2027 over here because I know that's the 3rd year. And then I'll it's really, really hard to throw away seeds, but I throw away seeds because I'm gardening with kids, and I don't have a lot of time to do germination tests and other things, and I want them to be successful. Or I'm growing for the Master Gardener plant sale. I don't have time to do a second batch, right? So I am pretty rigorous about using fresh seed. At home, not so much, because I can do it's the specialty seeds and keep things like flowers and stuff. I'll keep those for much longer beyond what they say, but it's not as critical there. So if you're doing this for home use, you probably have a little more leeway. I always store the seeds inside under dry, cool conditions. You don't want to get the variations in humidity and heat. Ideally, it's 45 degrees in a sealed jar with desiccant. I have way too many seeds to be putting in sealed jars with desiccant, but that's the best way to do it. So on the back of the handout, there is the approximate seed life chart there. And I just keep that with my seeds all the time. So when I get new seeds, I just write the dates on them, looking at the chart. Of note, onions and parsley, 1 year. So share around, right? How many parsleys do you need? Not that many. And the parsleys you can get 2 years out of, onions, not so much. You could eke it out, but onions really, really, really don't like to sit around seedless. So I heard a talk by Adaptive Seeds about seed saving, and he was pretty encouraging to people to look at places that grow and breed seeds here locally. We're pretty fortunate to have that right in our backyard, right? So Adaptive Seeds, Wild Garden Seeds, Peace Seedlings do a lot of their own growing. Other companies like Territorial Seed, they do some of their own growing, but a lot of their seeds aren't grown and bred here. And if you want to do your own seed saving, that's when you need to use heirloom or open pollinated varieties. So you could pay attention to that too. I alluded to this, share those extra seeds while they're still fresh. You can drop them out over here at the seed library, and so people can take small amounts as they need them. Or if you tried something and that wasn't exactly your favorite squash or whatever, squash seeds are good for 4 or 5 years. So again, share them around. Or how many squash plants do we need too? Also, the local food banks will take extra plants. So if you did start seeds inside and you said, "Oh, I'm going to start 10," well, realistically, they all germinated and grew, and you really are only going to plant 2 in your garden. Take them to the food bank. Take them, offer them up other places because people would like them. I have a number of resources on this list. They're on your handout, and also I have examples up here. So you can take a look at those. Something Territorial Seed used to print in their catalog, but now is only online, is their spring gardening chart. And this is awesome because it tells you this is the range. So in February, start indoors is orange. And it's like start indoors, artichoke, asparagus seed, and bulb onions and shallots. And it's really nice because then they show you when it's good to sow outside directly as well. I think they don't put these in their seed catalogs anymore because they've gotten much wider distribution. So this is a spring garden chart for Cottage Grove, Oregon, where they're located, right? But it's a pretty close approximation to here. So I love this chart. I keep it all the time because as I'm going down the list, oh, it's June. What can I plant now? So I always have, I do a refresh of my seed box this time of year. I throw out the old ones, get new ones so that I'm ready to go all season. Oh, we're doing nice. All right, this is your time to ask questions. Cheryl.
Not a question, but could you know how some places want you to plant a row for the food bank or whatever? If you do grow extra starts, I know that the South Food Bank will take them because master gardeners go there and do workshops with the people coming to get their food and give away those starts. So if you're feeling generous, be generous.
So that starts, and it's also produce. So if you have extra produce, you can call them first. Sometimes like apples and things like that, they get a ton of apples. So you might want to call before you get there and go, sorry, we can't take them. There's the comment over here. Question.
Just if you're really new, more or less, to starting seeds inside, would you have any kind of specific little pots or containers to recommend, or just like a big flat?
So the question is, do we have recommended containers? You know,
Have drainage.
as long as you have drainage. People have used egg cartons, yogurt cups, but you do need good drainage. And you need to have enough depth so they can develop roots.
3 inches.
Yep. Yep. So, okay. You know, they do those cute little blog post things and they'll put them in little eggshells. I've tried it. It doesn't work so great.
Yeah.
We need pots. You can just fill a tray and plant them and then work out the seedlings once they come up.
What's that? What kind of pots?
You don't really need pots if you have like a tray, just fill it with.
Oh, okay. You don't need pots. You can just do them in a flat and put your seeds in. I've tried that before and they can get a little messy. And if you have like one kind of tomato here and a different kind of so if I do it all together, I'll do like this tomato over here and then a pepper and then, you know, so that's a good space saving way to do that in a flat. There's the, yeah.
Have you grown onions from seed?
Oh yeah, onions are very easy from seed. So you take a 4-inch pot, fill it up. Okay, I'm breaking my 2-inch rule. Fill it up with soil, sprinkle like 100 seeds, however many you want, because the envelopes have a lot and you're not gonna be able to use them next year, right? So be judicious and just put it, and then put a light layer of soil over the top of them, smush them down. You know, I think it's like quarter inch deep is generally quarter to half-inch deep on that. And then the onions come up within a week or two and they'll get tall and spindly. So it's like transplanting grass. It's kind of a pain, but it's lovely because you just go out and make a trench and line them all up, burp, 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 and go boom, and stand them all up. And onions are super easy. You need to watch out for day length on those. So it's best to have your onions planted, you know, before June 21st, especially if they're the bulbing onions. The earlier the better, because otherwise you won't get a bulb.
Same with leeks too?
Yes, onions, leeks, you can do them all that way. So you can direct seed any of these, but then you have to thin them. And I would much rather grow them in a 4-inch pot and in a clump and go boom, 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 than to have to go replant. I mean, To me, it's just a lot easier to do in a 4-inch pot. There's a question over here.
Oh, I was just gonna ask about direct seeding onions, but you kind of.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Beware of the size of the seed. You don't want to smother it with too much topsoil.
Yeah, exactly. So follow the instructions on your seed packet. Don't, if it says 1/4 to 1/2 inch, believe it, 1/4, 1/2 inch. Yep.
I wanted to ask about fertilizer for seedlings, and if there's any like alternative homemade options that you recommend.
Alternative homemade options. I am not very big on homemade options. I have not done the research on that.
Compost tea.
What about, compost tea?
Yeah, she said, yeah, compost tea could be a really good choice. So you'd have to, yeah, I'm often doing things in massive quantity, so I don't do that. That's probably a good thing to learn. Ruby.
So, coconut core,
Uh-huh.
potting mix, can you talk about that?
So I've used coconut coir to start seedlings. I found it to be very difficult to keep an even moisture. It comes in these blocks and they're super dry and they you put 2 blocks in your wheelbarrow and water them down and they get huge they were really hard to keep moist. They would dry out fast and then and they were kind of rough, big, chunky. So it almost felt like you needed to like shred them more, but I didn't have that capability. So getting them in, if you're using the plastic things with little cells, it wasn't a good fit for me, but I know a lot of people do that. Another thing, some people have said about not using containers at all is the blocking, soil blocking technique. You have to get the blocker and they're kind of expensive, so I've never tried them, but some people have been really, really happy with them because the plants there's an air barrier there, so the roots make a nice little clump.
Mix
Yes,
compresses just right.
yes, you have to have the right level of moisture
Oh,
in your soil and the right kind of soil.
Good luck starting seeds that do not require light on top of the refrigerator because
Oh, yeah,
enough additional
heat, yes,
to start them and then of course moving them to
light,
good light as
yes.
not.
Yeah, so she's saying start your seeds on top of some warm appliance, like I do it on my water heater.
The refrigerator.
Or my kid, back when he was in high school, he had fish tanks. That was a really good one.
unfortunately, not too many houses have the old hot water radiators, which would have been ideal.
Oh, right. They can get kind of hot though. You had a question?
I was just asking maybe to repeat something somebody said.
Oh, yeah. So on top of a warm appliance. Yes.
I used to grow mushrooms.
Oh,
To grow mushrooms, you'd have to sterilize the media. They just household.
yeah.
But that was easy enough done. Just by steaming it.
Okay. Okay, so he's saying you can create your own seedling mix. Make sure it's sterile by steaming it. And probably don't do that in your house. My sister-in-law tried to do it in her microwave. It was
Now,
not pleasant. Stinky. Yes,
container.
exactly. Sterilize not in your house. Yeah,
No, not in a microwave.
yeah, it was bad.
So in your handout, it says bottom water, you can bottom water. How do you do that?
So bottom watering is like if you have a little yogurt cup, right, with holes in the bottom, and I have a tray, then I'm going to put water in the tray and stick my little yogurt cup on top of it.
They won't wake up too much water?
Well, then I'm going to take it out after a few hours and put
I see, you don't leave them in.
you don't leave them, no, you don't leave them in it. You don't want to set them, but that way you know that the water will get up there. However, if they're really, really dry, it takes a really long time for them to get water. So sometimes you just have to do it from the top and let it filter down, gravity feed them. David.
Do you think grow lights are worth the additional cost or you're better using something cheaper?
So the question is, are grow lights worth it? Because they're really expensive. Desk lamp. That's my home solution. If you have a bigger space and you have need for doing more more seedlings, and you have a more space, grow lights are totally worth it. if you don't have a greenhouse setting. The LED lights now are coming down significantly in price. Before they were like $400 for a
Of course, you could afford a lot, on grow lights.
Yeah.
right, right. I think straight up LED lights is a pretty inexpensive way to do it. You don't need the specialty grow lights. I think there's probably science that gives you more, it would say with the wavelengths, it gives you more better natural light conditions, but I'm cheap.
Grow lights also add a lot of heat.
Do the grow lights add heat? They can. I mean, so you have to monitor that. It depends on the light.
Depends on the type, I would think.
Yeah.
These don't generate nearly as much as
Right.
fluorescent or incandescent.
Right.
I was gonna say that plants absorb the same wavelengths of light that we did, like they can see visible light. So as long as it's like a white light that's
So if you can see the light, the plants will see the light. Okay, thank you.
Have you ever tried winter sowing?
Have I ever tried winter sowing indoors?
No, it's out.
Outdoors. I sow in the fall. And then, so starting July to September is when I do the sowing for winter gardening. But I will start things, in pots because all the tomatoes and squashes are out there in July, right? And so as those start to die back, I'll interplant those in. So nothing really germinate. Do I do anything germinating winter? No, not really. October is the latest. I do fava cover crops in October. That's about the latest thing I plant.
Yeah, so winter sowing is an actual method you can find on the internet, and the classic ways I've not done it. I've collected a bunch.
Oh, in the milk jug. Yeah.
And it's not good for I think tomatoes.
Or peppers, or basil, or yeah.
You can grow other things. I'm gonna try the basil, but yeah, you actually make your holes and you leave the top off and you put it outside.
Yes. So winter sowing will work for, I think, cool season crops. So I think you could get away pretty easily with doing lettuce, chard, kale, those things right now, peas.
So
But when it gets down to 20 something, if it's a milk jug sitting on top of your bench outside, I mean, it will freeze solid. So anything that has already germinated is going to die. So yes, but asterisk. I mean, you're basically making a little greenhouse with a jug, right? So you're giving it generally probably 10 degrees above whatever ambient is. So if it's down to 22 degrees at night, they're still going to freeze solid. So yes, I have seen those posts about winter thing, but asterisk. Yeah.
Why are there tomatoes at the farmer's market in May or May? When I
Divide
first got here,
eating.
I couldn't figure out how they could do that, but I couldn't do that.
That's called hoop houses, right? The farmers uses hoop houses to grow stuff so that they can be harvesting earlier. So that's extending the season using hoop houses.
Okay, we're going to thank you all for coming.
Yes, thank you.
And
Awesome.
we're going to say that we